Before starting today's video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video to encourage us to provide the best. This incident occurred 2 summers ago when I was out walking my dog, Albert, one night after work, something I did almost every day. Typically, I walked Albert earlier in the day, but since I had been working late that day, I went out just as the sun was setting. At around 8:30 p.m., I would walk around the neighborhood, as well as into some other nearby neighborhoods. It was a lovely area with many houses, and I would usually see a few other people out walking their dogs, but at that time, it was pretty deserted. I walked for about 30 minutes before deciding to turn back. Before doing so, I allowed Albert to run around on the grass for a bit. While he was playing, I noticed something unusual in the distance. Someone wearing a clown costume was walking up and down the street. The costume was really well made, and the person seemed to have their whole face painted instead of wearing a mask. They also wore a wig. It immediately struck me as odd since it wasn't Halloween, and they didn't appear to be with anyone. Unfortunately, I had to walk past the clown to get home. I waited at the park for a few minutes, hoping the clown would go away first, but then Albert noticed him and began to bark. Although Albert is a French bulldog and not very intimidating, he still barks at people a lot. As the clown stopped walking and turned his head to look at us, I became apprehensive. He then turned and walked away, and I resumed my walk home with Albert. I didn't think about the clown again until about 10 minutes later when I heard footsteps behind me. They weren't very close, perhaps 100 feet away, but I had an eerie feeling that it might be the clown. I didn't want to stop and look behind me, so I continued walking until I reached the next street corner. I casually looked behind me and saw that it was indeed the clown who had been following us. I kept walking home, with the clown remaining a safe distance away. As he continued to follow me and I got closer to home, I became more and more anxious. For a few minutes, I didn't hear the clown's footsteps, so I turned around and was relieved to see no one there. However, just a few moments later, I heard footsteps again, and then they changed from walking to running. When I looked behind me, I saw the clown with a huge, creepy grin on his face, running directly at me and Albert. When I saw the clown running at me with that creepy grin on his face, I panicked and started to run as fast as I could. Albert kept up with me, and we sprinted down the street, turning at each block to try to lose the clown. Finally, when I couldn't hear his footsteps anymore, I stopped and looked behind me. The clown was nowhere to be seen. I walked a few more blocks, constantly checking my surroundings, before finally making my way back home. I was so relieved that we had made it back safely, but the encounter had left me shaken. From that point on, I decided to avoid walking Albert at night. I went to bed that night and slept well, but the next morning, I woke up to a chilling sight. There was a balloon with a string taped to it on my bedroom window, and I had slept with my windows cracked open all night. The thought of the clown being outside my window gave me goosebumps. I still have no idea who the clown was or what he wanted. My wife and I reside in a semi-rural area, not too remote, but with a sizable yard and woods on our land. Our street has a few homes, and one night, while my wife was asleep, I stayed up late in the living room watching a sports game on TV. After the game ended, I turned off the TV and the lights. As the living room lights dimmed, I saw something strange in the front yard. A person wearing a complete clown outfit with a mask was standing there and staring directly at me. This was highly unusual as it was not typical to see anyone walking on our street, and our driveway was quite lengthy. I was shocked to see a clown in our front yard, and as he continued to stare at me, I became increasingly apprehensive. I approached the front door, but as I got closer, the clown's eerie appearance became more unsettling. I opened the front door just a crack and peered out. Although the clown was some distance away, I didn't want to take any risks. My plan was to ask him who he was and what he wanted, but before I could do so, he ran off and vanished into the woods. This was disconcerting since those woods were ours, but I hoped he had simply run away, and that would be the end of it. I stayed up a while longer, making sure all the windows and doors were locked before finally retiring to bed. I fell asleep quickly but was awakened in the middle of the night by my wife, who asked if I heard anything. I listened carefully, but I didn't hear anything. She then told me that she had heard knocking on the front door in the middle of the night. The knocking was rapid and constant, but not too hard. It lasted for about 15 seconds before it stopped. I suspected that it was the clown, so I informed my wife of what I had seen earlier. She suggested calling the police. I slowly got out of bed, and the knocking resumed. This time, it didn't stop and grew progressively louder. I made my way towards the living room while keeping out of sight of the clown. I saw him knocking on the window of the front door. As he knocked, I heard him laughing in a sinister manner. I then yelled out in a loud and authoritative voice, claiming that I had already called the police, even though I hadn't. My goal was to frighten him away, and it appeared to work. After my bluff, he stopped knocking, and I didn't hear him again. I have no idea why the clown came to our home or how he found us. When I was a child, many years ago, my parents took me to a large park that was situated near our home. We lived in a city, so the parks were always crowded, and this particular day was no exception. There seemed to be some sort of event happening as the park was filled with people. As we were walking, I immediately noticed a clown, who waved at me. However, as someone who was creeped out by clowns, I gave a brief wave back and walked away. We continued to explore the park, eventually finding an area with games, a live band, and various food stands. We played some games and took a walk around, enjoying ourselves before eventually leaving to go to the grocery store. After we finished our grocery shopping, we walked back to our car, and that's when I noticed a van parked a few spaces away from us. As I glanced over, I thought I saw the clown from earlier in the driver's seat, but I quickly dismissed it as an odd coincidence. We went home, had dinner, and afterwards, I went outside to shoot some hoops like I usually did. But as I stepped outside, I noticed a van parked across the street, and once again, the clown was driving it. He ducked down as soon as he saw me, but then slowly raised his head and smiled, waving at me. Feeling creeped out, I immediately ran back inside to tell my parents. Unfortunately, by the time they came outside with me, the van had already driven away. Thankfully, we never saw the van or the clown again. However, every time I think back to that experience, it still gives me the creeps. This incident occurred several years ago when I was around 14 or 15 years old. At that time, I lived with my parents in an average house during the summer season. After spending a day playing video games and enjoying the warm weather, I went to bed at night. However, in the middle of the night, I woke up without any apparent reason. Glancing at my clock, I noticed that it was almost 3 in the morning. I looked around my dark room and out of the window next to my bed. To my horror, I saw a creepy-looking clown's face peering into my bedroom window and staring directly at me. My heart raced, and I jumped back in fright, causing the clown to suddenly duck down and disappear from sight. I screamed and ran out of my room in terror, straight into the living room. My parents, who must have heard my cries, emerged from their room, and I told them what I had seen. They went to my room, searched around, and then walked outside to inspect the area. Unfortunately, the perpetrator had fled, and my mom suggested that it might have been just a bad dream. This incident was strange because our neighborhood was known for its low crime rate, and we rarely had unexpected visitors. Eventually, I was able to fall back asleep, but it took me some time to calm down. The following day, I began to question whether the previous night's events had been a mere dream. The situation seemed too bizarre for me to believe, and it all happened so abruptly. I had started feeling better and wasn't afraid to go to bed when bedtime arrived. I switched off the lights, laid down, and started to feel drowsy. However, I thought I heard something at my window. A small, quiet noise that sounded like someone touching the glass. If it hadn't been for the complete silence in my room, I would never have heard it. I opened my eyes and peered at the window, only to find a man in a creepy clown mask staring back at me. This time, I was certain I wasn't dreaming because I hadn't even fallen asleep yet. I felt paralyzed with fear and couldn't move. The clown just kept staring at me until I started screaming again and ran to my parents' room. Once again, my parents heard me and got up to investigate. This time, my dad saw the clown too and chased him outside, but the perpetrator got away before he could catch him. We called the police, but the clown was never identified, and he never came back. To this day, I have no idea who he was or what he was trying to accomplish. Thank you for watching today's video. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking and sharing it to support me. The best is yet to come.